Hey, we all live, y'all. This is good. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all the welcome to Live Aquatics. How about that? Let's go! How about that? Again, big shout out to all the great moderators out there. You do phenomenal. You go out of your way to make the live stream smooth. Thanks to all the co-hosts, to all the members, all the subscribers, all the watchers, especially watch the replay. Those guys are rocking. Anyways, we got Mariah and TJ tonight on. We got the best co-host on Thursday Night Live. How about that? Welcome everyone.
Hey everybody! It's good to be back for another Thursday, guys. I'm excited to be here with you.
Welcome back. We missed you. Alrighty, yo. Let's see. Take a deep breath, everyone. Relax. It's gonna be okay. We'll make it through an hour and a half. Anyways, that was weird. Those that missed the video Monday night, that might be a new thing. I went live at a local fish club.
Oh, yeah.
Now I was not impressed with the audio, so if y'all think this would be a great thing in the future, y'all, let me know. Cause I thought what I can do is take all my equipment, all this equipment, and take it along and set it up over there. And, you know, it's only once a month, so I can't complain. So now this past Monday, it was about plants and trees here in Texas. So I learned a lot of things. So that was cool. And since it is like it's more of a pond society, it's more of a pond club than a 100% fish club. But there's a lot of us fish keepers that are there regularly. Anyhow.
Now, Vibes, is that what you consider to be your local fish club as well, or no, is that separate?
That's separate.
Separate. Okay.
This one it's called Austin Pond Society. Now,
yep, I saw that.
There is a Greater Austin Aquarium Society. Now that it covers the whole spectrum, from ponds to freshwater, saltwater, reptiles. I mean, it covers the whole spectrum. Yeah.
Got it. Oh, even reptiles.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
There's quite a few of the ones in the club that have reptiles, so it's the whole spectrum.
Okay.
And tonight, y'all, if you got questions and you think it's urgent or emergency, ask away, but put at Vibes Aquatics in front of it. That way we catch it, because otherwise we might not see it and stay on topic. You know what I'm saying? And if it depends on the question, if it is too deep and it's off the topic, I might star it or whatever you want to call it. And we might talk about it in a later live stream. So,
which is actually what we're doing tonight. We'll get into it in a second. But tonight's topic was actually a question from last week that we decided to make an entire episode out of, or an entire stream.
Which, I'm glad. Hey, keep asking away, y'all, because these are great questions. Anyhow, I'm going ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and welcome everyone to the live stream. Now, I did go ahead and get the participation list over on fishfam.link. Let me pull it up, y'all.
You're all official tonight, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm stepping it up, eh?
I
kind of like it. I don't know. All right. Now, I need to find it first. Hold on, y'all. I'm not seeing. Well. Yeah, I had to refresh. Sorry, y'all. Okay. That's weird. I'm not seeing it. Hold on. I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna have to totally refresh it. That link is glitching a little bit, y'all. Just bear with me. And while I figure that out, um, I got a live stream scheduled for Saturday Night Vibes, by the way, y'all, coming up. And I'm bringing back the vibe check. Those who wondered.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. See, last Saturday night, I did a lot of polls in the chat, and that was one of the polls. And the poll was, let's bring it back. The vibe check.
And they said yes, huh?
Yes.
Great.
So, without further ado, of course we gotta bring it back, and we have a guest that's planning to come on. So
nice.
Okay, we got the participation now. There's 8 of them. All Things Fish, Mike, welcome. Fishfarm.link, welcome. Curlworks, MNC Aquatics, Outside Aquatics, Passing Wind, Skull Aquatics, and Way Way. So now this might be a new thing. I'll have to decide when to go read the participants. Maybe in the future I might wait. 20 minutes in or 15 minutes in or whatever to let everyone come in to read the list.
Yeah, because now we're picking up. We've got Laura, LJ Shrimp. We got Mexicali joining us. Hi, Jorge. Shady Grady jumped in here. We got Melvin, Asia.
Right. So yeah, in the future, maybe I might wait 15 minutes. That way, those that want to be shouted out, kind of thing, can come in. Hey, Stephen P, welcome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the topic in. Let me see tonight. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hit it hard, because I don't know if we have enough time to talk about the whole thing. Where are you at? I'm not saying it. There we go. Yeah, and a quick shout out to the one that asked that question last Thursday. Curlworks asked it. He asked, I'm trying to think, well, what was the question that he asked?
I think it was just, can we talk about the difference between a biotope and a biotype was the basics of the question. And we didn't have a chance, unfortunately, with what we were doing to get into it. But I think this worked out great. It caused us to kind of do a little bit of our own research and, try and understand a little bit more about the topic. And hopefully it'll bring some good conversation. I think, we always get we always get a lot of interaction from our chat members. And I think amongst us, we usually find different angles and things. So I think it's a great idea.
Right. And also, it's actually a great idea. Depends on the question comes along, y'all, in the future. Some of those questions we might just write down or put in our notes and talk about later. Because, just for me personally, my opinion, I've learned a lot more about this question, the topic, than prior. So that's good. Because otherwise, I probably wouldn't even research it, You know what I'm saying? Okay.
I would agree with you.
There's some comments here. Mom, just, Mr. Callie said most of biotypes, very few are actual biotopes. Can you truly create a biotope in a glass box? By Stephen P. Okay. This is what I got. I'm going to start it off. Some of the research that I've found. Hold on. Wrong page. Some of these are not my own thoughts. I had to pull it from other sources since I'm not really bright, y'all. Anyways, a biotope is recreating a very specific waterway or environment. Basically, you're making the same as what's in nature. Say the plants, the driftwood, rocks. Basically, recreating what's in nature. That's a biotope. A biotype is like some of the Mescali said, which is a lot more those in the hobby. A biotype is basically recreating an environment that has, I don't know, inspired you, that was in nature, basically making an ecosystem out of it. But before going further, I'm gonna let my co-host, um, yeah, go ahead.
Mariah, you want to go or you want me to jump in? It's up to you.
Sure. So yeah, just like you were saying, vibes from what I found as well. Exactly right. A biotope is it's just an attempt to emulate a naturally occurring environment that's already in an aquatic ecosystem out in the wild. Um, and then there you can go even further with it by not only just the type of plants and the hardscape and substrate that you use, but go even further with, of course, the water chemistry, water flow rates, temperature variation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can do lower water, higher water to emulate rainy season versus dry season, all those different things, and to stimulate spawning. Um, so yeah, that's what I found as far as biotope goes. And for me, biotype, what I also found was essentially the type of biological organisms that are going to inhabit a specific geographical area.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, the biotope would be a Tanganyikan cichlid tank. The biotype for that tank would be the Tanganyikan cichlids. Um, or even specifically fish that could or do have those specific conditions in the wild in their ecosystem that you are trying to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think this sent me down quite a path of just trying to see sort of what was out there in general when we do some looking around. And I think what I found was lots of different opinions
Mm-hmm.
based,
Mm-hmm.
I think, very little on fact in a lot of cases, right? And so that to me was pretty interesting. The one source that I did find, and I think Vibe, you said you found the same one that I did. There was a
Mm-hmm.
video where Rachel O'Leary was on a stream with the King of DIY, and they were talking about the difference
Mm-hmm.
between a biotope and a biotype. And I feel like she really hit the definition quite well. Rachel did around biotope being kind of a lot of the things that I think that we're seeing here in the chat. It's your substrates, it's your plants, it's your
Mm-hmm.
rocks and hardscapes, it's all the fish that are all found in that area. And right, you can take that kind of as deep and as far as you want to go, and that's really kind of truly when you're thinking about a biotope. But the biotype is sort of everything else that's, I think the way she said it is kind of it's inspired by a particular waterway or even
Mm-hmm.
a particular type of a waterway. When you look at in Amazonas magazine, every once in a while they will show you pictures from aquascaping competitions, and
Mm-hmm.
people will go in there for some of them and they will say this is from this particular section of the Xingu River or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or whatever
Right.
the case may be. And even in those cases, those are usually things that are just inspired. Those are like the biotypes,
Right.
right? Maybe it has fish that would be found there, and some of the similar types of things that you might find, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not the exact thing. I
Right.
did see in here, Riva Coro
Right.
said that it works for the eaters, and I did
Mm-hmm.
see, I think it was earlier this week, that Shelby and Grant put up a video where
Yes,
they
it
actually went
is.
out to one of their collecting locations that they
Mm-hmm.
like and put together an aquarium right there on the spot. And so from that standpoint, those things came right from that area.
Yeah.
again, it depends on how far you take it down that path, because I think it's hard to say that all of the different organisms and things like that are in that waterway automatically restarted and populated in that aquarium, which I don't think they kept up long, right? It was kind of putting things in there, set it up, take a video, and then they took it down and released everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even that is probably right. It's probably arguable on, is it Biotope or Biotype in that case, but you can't say that those things, based on what you saw, didn't come from that area, right? So I think it's a very complex question, and I think it was actually a really interesting one that Coro asked, and I'm glad that we're trying to tackle it tonight.
Yes, and I did see that Foxy Fisheries viewers just popped in, just joined us. So welcome everyone. Hopefully you can be encouraged. Hopefully you can be entertained. Hopefully you can learn something. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and welcome everyone back into the live stream. Those that I missed, those that are participating. You know what I'm saying? This is a new feature over. Okay, not a new feature. New feature for vibes. How about that? I'm gonna go ahead and read down through the list who's all here. If you want to be, so if you want to be, basically, if you want to be recognized, say hi. Anyways, we got All Things Fish, Asaya, DD's Finden, First Class Fish, Fish on Link, Foxy Fishies, Home of the Clown Trigger, Hogan Hill Design, Jeff Kane, Curlworks, Linda Worth, LJ's Shrimp, MNC, Mexicali, Nancy B, Jason Hovey, Outside Aquatics, Passing Wind, Katie Grady, Skull Aquatics, Sonny G, Stephen P, Stephen White, Melvin, and Wei Wei. Welcome everyone. And if y'all like this, like me to say this, welcome everyone in. Let me know. If you don't, let me know as well. I mean, hey Craig, welcome. I don't have to do this, but I enjoy seeing who's all here. It's like giving recognition to everyone, Okay, back to the topic. I seen Miss Callie earlier put in the chat. Let me see. Which I wanted to read off. There we go. For example, Eddie, if you take all the substrate, rocks, plants, and anything else you need from that same place, you got the mollies, that would be a biotope. So basically, taking, like we said, the eaters, and just basically recreating exactly what was in nature. CVP, that's a good question.
Yeah, I like that.
When does biotope become a biotype, and at what point is it even a biotype? Good question.
So I mean, I think the second part. Oh, go ahead, Mariah.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say the most common, actual definition that I found for specifically the biotype is just a group of organisms that are specified to a specific set of genetics. So that's a really broad range, right? When we're talking about fish, especially, or just aquatics in general, from fish to plants to everything that we could possibly use in our hobby as far as creating that natural environment. That's why when I spoke on it earlier, I think there is a big distinction, being that the biotope is the environment itself, very specific to emulating the natural environment in the wild. And the biotype is just the genetic organisms that are found in those areas. So I think they kind of coincide with each other as far as the biotype and biotope goes because of that.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to combine a little bit of Stephen's comment here that you highlighted, along with one that Coro had made earlier about comment that Coro made was, I do think that you can use store-bought stuff, though not that my opinion matters. You can call a tank whatever you want. It's just semantics. right? And I think that's part of the challenge. Is I think there is so many different opinions, and I don't know that there's one necessarily, recognized standard. I think we all in general get the definition, but there's not like necessarily people out there certifying that you've got a biotope versus a biotype. And I think that's where it gets kind of a little bit difficult, because to some of the comments before, how deep down that ecosystem do you go before you really would consider it a true total biotope? Because like I said earlier, you can kind of take that really, really far, all the way down to the individual organisms, types of bacteria, right? If you start to think about different types of waters, like very low acidic pHs, and the differences there, where even things like levels of ammonia aren't as toxic to fish, and there's certain types of bacterias that can't survive. Those are differences in those places, right? And so in order to call your aquarium a biotope, do you have to have all of those things in there, as well? I guess my opinion would say, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Right. I would say, yeah, probably. If you really want to say this is like a true slice of some piece of nature.
Right. Well, if you want to call it a true biotope, I would agree. But if you're just going for a biotope look, then that I would say is definitely different, of course. But Stephen P just had another good question. If you create a biotype using a species that is invasive to that area, does that still count? That is a very good question. Again, with the biotype, I think that specifically refers to a group of organisms with shared genetics, right? So it could be specifically talking about, like for instance, if you get some mollies that are not even from the area that you caught them in, but you have an abundance of them, and that's the only thing that you put in that tank, whether it's the tank itself is a biotope or not, then yes, I think you still have created the biotype, because you still have that shared genetic organism within the tank amongst a group of fish.
And then do you also at that point, Mariah, do you think that the time period that you're going for makes sense? So like there was a point in time you would assume that an invasive species might not have existed there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, then you start to look at it and you say, if we know from local department of environmental conservation or whatever, that a particular type of species became prevalent in the waterway that Vibes goes and collects in 1985.
Right.
Well, at that time, that is what was there, right? And maybe through to today, but prior to that, it looked different, right? And so that's where it gets into this whole very murky sort of situation of what version of that waterway are you going after, and so that's where I think it's really hard to sort of nail down. And I think that's where I tend to say that a lot of this is just all biotypes, right? And it's things that people are looking at a certain location and they're emulating it to their eye and to what they observe.
Right.
They may see one species of fish, but it may be just at the point at which they collected, that's all that happened to be in that part of that waterway. And if they were 100 yards down the river a little further, it looked completely different, right? And so that's where it gets very nuanced and very specific.
Yeah, and I think along with that too, like even going into like from the invasive species in different waterways to even, I mean, the way we have fish in our hobby majority of the time now, like through breeding, in farms and in tanks, that a lot of these fish are generations and generations away from their ever being in their natural environment where they originally come from. So there's that caveat as well, and then the caveat where even if they had come out of their natural environment. They're now put into something that is not that, and then they end up breeding. The next generation ends up in a totally different parameter of water than what they're originally used to. Then is it a true biotype at that point? Is it a true biotope at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, it's true to the current necessities of that fish, but is that what it originally came from? And a lot of times that's not the case.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mariah, Outside In asked for clarification on the definition that you had stated earlier about, am I right in hearing that you don't create a biotype? You use a biotype, fish, shrimp, or other microfauna in a biotope. Do you want to clarify that definition?
Yes, so based on the traditional definition of both of the words, I would say that yes, that is correct. Because again, like I said, the biotope is defined as the environment itself, in which the organisms would inhabit, that is emulating the natural environment. Whereas the biotype is the organisms that are sharing specific genetics or genotype within that environment. So yes, that is correct.
And Mariah, did the definition extend also to like the plants in that area? I mean, they do have a genetic makeup, right, of some sort.
Yes, so that just extends to just in general organisms. So from the plants to the bacteria to different types of algae, any type of living organism that are going to be in a specific geographical location is what his biotype is referring to.
I like Stephen P's comment.
Yeah.
For the truest of true biotope, you have to replicate the weather patterns of the area too, including pressure fluctuations. Yes.
Right, absolutely.
Yes.
You can't argue that
many
point, right?
cases, right? Yeah, and in many cases, none of us has a true biotope.
Right.
And of course, we all try to emulate as much as we can a natural environment for our fish, but I mean, none of us have pressure regulators or anything like that. I'm sure many of us don't have pressure regulators and a lot of those fancy things in our tanks to make it exact to the environment. Most of us, we just match the water parameters, get your pH and temperature good, have a good substrate, and it's fine.
I don't know, Mariah. I think Vibes last week was trying to change his pressure there with that Mister thing he had going on that I thought was on fire. Creating his own weather system over there.
Yeah, right. I was trying, yeah. But since it freaked everyone out, I decided this week I had to turn it off.
Oh, I was prepared for it this week, man.
You can say it's not going this week, but it's okay. Maybe next week. Mr. Callie! There we go. That's the way I say a true biotope will be a native fish and hardscape near the immediate waterway. Which, since you mentioned Mr. Callie, I do want to, in the future, do a biotope, try to, and much about my ability to do it with the mollies. And basically taking the environment in the river, pulling the whole environment out and putting it in a tank. And try to, recreate. I mean, now, of course, I can't do it in this tank here, y'all. That's too small of a tank.
Oh, no, you can. Absolutely, you can.
But how would you make
Fatherfish has some great videos on YouTube. You should check him out. He's got some great videos about doing just that.
Right. Thousand Wind, welcome. Is he here? Yeah. Anyways, basically, the reason I said that, how would you make a river in this tank?
I mean, you could do like wave makers on either side of the tank. You could do a larger one on one side pointed toward the surface of the tank, and then a smaller one on the closer toward the bottom, kind of angled at a slightly upward pattern to kind of give you that current type motion or circular motion or whatever that the river would have.
I think ABC Kenny.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do this true justice because it's been a long time since I saw the video, but I think in at least one, if not more than one of his aquariums, he did like a river where he put, I think there was like maybe like a false bottom or something like that in the aquarium. And he started with the water at kind of one end and it sort of ended up down in the false bottom. And then
where it continuously filtered around.
Sorry about that, guys.
You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and so it kind of continuously flowed sort of like that. And so, I think something like that, I think a hang on back in one end, and you could kind of simulate what a river would do. Again, it's all simulation. And I think so that's interesting. I just sort of stumbled upon that word, but the way I kind of look at this conversation and sum it up is it's simulation, right? Anything that we do in our aquarium is simulating something else. I think there's different levels of simulating. Bear with me, right? Because I'm going to dive into the world real quick of like racing, right? There's all sorts of different simulators that people have, right? There's everything from you can consider sort of like a racing video game. That's a kind of a simulation, right? You're simulating driving a car on a track, going all the way to high dollar professional level simulators that are trying to really emulate as close as what it is to being in the car. They have motion, you feel the G forces, all those other kinds of things. And, so it's kind of, in my mind, it's obviously different. But I feel like there's a similarity there in the fact that, everything we're trying to do is a version of a simulation. It just depends on how far down that path can you or do you want to kind of go to making it like what you're trying to emulate or trying to make it look like.
Yeah. I did see in the chat here some people talking about the lights having some lights that actually supposedly the two weather settings on the lights, which would might cause or trigger some breathing. Which I can understand that. Basically, you try to make it a closed system. Like George said, you got to have some allergy. Yeah. Sorry, y'all. I was just making sure I didn't miss any. Okay. Now I did see a question. I'm gonna quick catch it. That way we don't get too far behind the chat. Way back, Homer the Clown Trigger. So what is it then? A marine tank with only fish from the Pacific.
Marine tank with only fish from the Pacific.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say it would depend on the setup of the tank, of course, right? I mean, if you've got corals that are not native to the Pacific and, and a different type of substrate or sand and not, of course, like we were talking about earlier, very true to the water parameters and as close to the environment as possible, I would say it's just a marine tank with Pacific fish in it. But if you were emulating that environment as closely as possible and basically just the opposite of what I just said, and you have everything from that environment, then yes, of course, it would be a true biotope.
He comes
with
back
the
and says,
native biotype.
come back and said, yeah, the fish and the sand. So basically, yeah. Now, if Mariah was saying, if you add other species or other stuff to the tank that doesn't come from that area, then no, it wouldn't be.
Right.
I would think at best you could call it a biotype.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you really, like if those stones came from the Pacific somewhere, I mean, I think the problem is what if so you're going to say that the whole ocean of the Pacific is a type of biotope, biotype, the environment you're trying to emulate. That's, I think, the one thing that I did see is, like I talked about in Amazonas magazine, people are pretty specific when they're talking about what they're trying to represent in their scape.
Right.
I think that's opposite of sort of what we see if we're talking about the whole Pacific. Like you're sort of just emulating things that come from a giant body of water, right? Again, it depends on how specific you are. If it's one particular section of the Pacific and you're collecting different things that come from there, yeah, fine. I think that's a biotype, but
We've got a pretty funny comment from Coral. Says, George, can you mail me a box of sand and twigs from Arizona? I have Renal fairy shrimp and triopes from there. I could make a biotope seasonal pond.
Yeah.
Listen, y'all got to make that work. We need that video.
Yeah, and also, when I was doing some research on this biotope versus biotype, there was a lot of information coming up about other types out there. I didn't realize how many, how many different words, different meanings come up, but and
George just made a great point.
go ahead.
He said, biotopes are so hard to accomplish. That's why 99.9% of us have biotypes, which is exactly right.
I'd argue even a biotype is a challenge.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think well, I suppose you're right, because you say it's inspired, right? But
Yes.
I guess in my head I kind of have some sort of a level of a bar, right, that says that you've got to have some piece of it that is, in the ballpark, right? I mean, there are so many different types of rocks. Is it exactly the same type of whatever type of stone? I feel like it gets to a certain point where I tend to feel like it sort of strays a little bit further and further away from being anything you could call, anything other than just a normal aquarium, right? I feel like there's got to be some sort of a limit.
And what if you add something to the tank that isn't from the wild, from that specific location? Is it no longer a biotope if you add anything to the tank?
A biotope?
Yeah.
I would say that we've established, I think that's the strictest of the definitions. And so I would say if you add something that's not from there, then you definitely aren't in a biotope.
Okay.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Hey, welcome, Bunny.
Now you can go for, like I said before, you can go for a biotope look in the tank without going for a true biotope. I mean, for example, using fake plants that look like the real plants from that area.
Yeah.
Or painted rocks that look like the rocks from that area. That type of stuff. You can always go for that type of look, but without being a true biotope.
Right.
And to touch a little bit on what we were just saying a minute ago, TJ, as far as biotype, I think in some cases it's really easy to accomplish that, right? As far as, like I said before, for example, an all African cichlid tank. If you just did a specific lake of just Tanganyikan and cichlids, that would be, I would say, a true biotype in that tank, because all of the organisms in that tank, especially if it's established and it's got everything else that it needs, from the bacteria to the algae to the fish themselves, that I would say would be true biotype, because they all have shared genetics within their environment. So yeah, I think it's possible to have true biotype without having biotope, but I don't think it's possible to do vice versa. If you have a true biotope, then the biotype of that would be only native to that environment, specifically in the wild. Whereas with biotype, you can have a SpongeBob themed tank and have a very specific biotype within that tank of organisms.
Right. I mean, it's still a nice tank, y'all. Don't get us wrong. It's still, it might inspire you from the wild. Um, it might be closer to the Blackwater aquariums or the botanicals aquariums. Those are awesome, but it's not the Biotope we're talking about this evening. Um,
And I like Coro had a comment here a little bit ago. If you don't put research into the waterway the fish came from and put it together with intent to replicate the environment, regardless of the source of where it comes from, it's not a biotype, biotope, bionope.
yep, I like that.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. You can't just even as close as you get to the outside environment, right? Vibes of going and collecting
Mm-hmm.
without knowing more about the area that you're in and what that waterway is truly like. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
all you did is you collected a bunch of fish that happened to be in that area at the time you dipped your net, right?
Right. Which I have the ability to go out and collect everything I need to make it into a biotope.
Yep.
But like I was saying earlier, I need to, like you were saying, and Carol was saying, I need to do my research and find the exact what I need to make it exactly the same thing.
Yep.
So that's going to definitely be an endeavor. But since it is local to me, it's going to make it a little easier. I mean, it's only like 5 minutes from my house, So
Yeah.
Sorry, the comments are going through too fast. I'm hoping I don't miss anyone. Like I said earlier in the start, if you think it's a good question and you don't want it missed, put that vibe request in front of it. Otherwise, it might get missed. But yeah.
I like Coro's question. Can you make a biotope or bionope with a single species? Like if Todd used Tanganyikan snail shells and sand and one species of shelly, would that count? I would say no.
I'm trying to find the comment. Can you make a biotope or bionope with a single species? Like if Todd used.
I'd say no.
Well, I think it's probably a bionope.
Yeah.
But
right? I mean, again, I think it's inspired by.
There's going to be not only just that one type of shelly in Lake Tanganyika. There's many other as well. So
unless to his earlier point, right? If you happen to, which I have not done, if you happen to go there and you dive in the lake and you happen to be actually doing some sort of visual research, looking around, seeing what is there, and you find that that's the only thing that's in that particular collection point, I don't think that's reality, but say it was, okay, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a biotype, right? You collected the natural shells that were there, you collected the fish that were there, you collected the substrate and if there was rocks or whatever else. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
but I don't
in
think
that case, then yeah.
reality,
but I mean,
right?
if we were getting to that level of kind of tediousness with as far as like how small are we talking about of a collection area, right?
Right, exactly.
Are we talking about like, because you can dip a 5-gallon bucket into the ocean and pull it back up and there's nothing in it, and then say, oh well, there must be nothing in the ocean, where we all know that that's not the case.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's
right.
What parameters are we setting as far as collection area or size, or are we talking about the whole lake? Are we talking about a 5-foot section or 2 inches? So I guess it would really depend on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, which is an interesting thought that you just kind of provoked for me there, Mariah. Like I had said, I keep going back to it, I know, but the times that I've seen the aquascaping competitions, people have talked in very specific types of, in some cases, not all cases, but I've seen where they talk very specifically about a certain piece of a larger body of water. And so, if you look at that, it does make it easier, certainly, to kind of put that together, because you're not talking about an entire river, you're not talking about an entire ocean, right? So it is, I think it's, and this is why I like Bunny Viper. I like Ivy's comment that she left here. I think unless they are superfish people no one but you will know the difference or concern themselves with it, right? This is all sort of a conversation of what are we trying to go for individually? What do we like? I have no aquariums in my current home here that I would consider to be anything other than a Bionope, right? It's I put in the plants that I enjoy, I put in the fish that I enjoy that I know that will live together. There's not been any attempt to recreate anything other than sort of, something that I enjoy to sit and watch, and I enjoy to take care of, and things like that. And so, I wanted to highlight that because, I think she's right. The more importantly, do you like it? I think ultimately that's what's most important to us. But I think this is a very interesting conversation that I wouldn't have gotten to had Briva last week not asked that question, and sort of started to make me think about what are the possibilities.
Right.
And Penny made a good comment too, is that a tank is a small area. It isn't the whole lake containing every fish, which is of course back to the whole, I mean, that breaks down to what size or what type of collection area you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nope. Go for it.
I was going to say, I'm going to welcome some more people into the live stream. I want everyone to feel welcome. Mark Sterlson, welcome. Jeremy P, welcome. Vinoski. Big Steve. Making sure. If I missed you, I'm sorry. That was not my intent. Everyone is welcome here. Like George said earlier, a large percentage of our fish aren't found in the wild anyways. Yeah, exactly, Mr. Kelly. Yeah.
I like Steven's comment as well. A biotope is almost like a little wildlife preserve because it's not like we are throwing predators and natural prey in there together.
True.
Correct. Yep.
So I would agree with that, although I would also toss in that it depends on what you've got together, because, I mean, theoretically, any fish can turn into prey no matter what. Even if they're the same thing, they can definitely turn into prey.
Yeah, and you're not creating an entire, usually, again, I think people could be left up to their own devices and do all sorts of things, but, you're not creating the entire system, the entire food chain. Yep. It's not, unless you go to those lengths and understand. There it goes back to Riva's point around the research, right? If you truly understand a particular location and what are all the different species that inhabit that area, and even things down to fluctuations by season, changes in the water chemistry, unless you understand all of those things, you're not truly like replicating it exactly. It's still going to be an approximation.
Right.
I think the exact replication is really impossible when you think about it, right? Because, I mean, no matter how much equipment or fancy stuff we have, there's no possible way for us to get an exact copy of nature in our home.
Sure.
Nature got it right for a reason. It's exactly why we're trying to copy it, not the other way around. I think we could all really argue in general that the only real true biotopes are in nature.
Yeah.
Sure. And we just do our best to get as close as possible.
Sure. Yep. And I was just going to say, Cora said here, like with shell dwellers, there might not be multiple species in the same area, but they developed shell dwelling as a response to predation, right? They needed to survive, and they adapted to use the no longer being used snail shells as a way to have cover, to breed and raise their young. And yeah, that's absolutely right. They learned to do that as a survival mechanism as some of the smaller species in their particular habitats. Absolutely.
Right.
Mhm.
I can go back to what TJ said earlier about you're basically trying to simulate what it's in nature uh, to your best ability. So, is there hey, is there certain stages of biotopes?
Certain
Absolutely.
stages of biotopes. Oh, I'm not sure if I went to the same place that you did, but
Go ahead.
sure, I would think over time,
Mhm.
right? If I think about I'm thinking of now going with your idea that the true biotope is the actual place out in nature, right?
Hmm.
Those areas go through an evolution,
Mhm.
more than daily, right?
Right.
Things change. And so I would say those are all potentially stages. It depends on how you sort of look at it, but it's like the flow of a river changes over time as it
Right.
erodes away certain parts of the land, and um, people come in and they end up impacting it in some way through building or traffic or um, right. So I think that's kind of another
Right.
that's another thing.
Welcome, Paul Sotero. Welcome, Sonics. You mentioned about the river or the water moving
Hmm.
with the environment. That means that the environment's getting more different minerals, different organisms into the waterway
Hmm.
over time. It's not. It's a changing biotope basically.
Yeah, I would assume depending on the change that happens, right? If they have something that comes into a waterway that changes the pH in a meaningful way, could certain species um, not survive there anymore, or ones
Right.
that didn't used to be there now they're there? So yeah, I would say those are all different stages, right?
Mm-hmm. So, good question. How would we, as aquariumists, be able to recreate that? Is it possible?
I mean,
I would argue no.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because we actually had some good point outs. First Class Fish said everything affects everything, including surrounding areas, and the natural extension of that is further and further out. So that would mean the entire planet. And
Hmm.
Coral responded with that would be an ecosystem, not a biotope,
Right.
which is
hmm
exactly right. I think what a lot of us do in most cases are create ecosystems that are as close as possible to the biotope in the wild.
Right.
Are we able to in most cases achieve a true biotope? No.
Right.
I
Hey,
like the
Mike.
follow-up comment.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Biotopes are like a microcosm of the greater ecosystem, I think. Like not
Right.
deciduous rainforest, but this specific place in this specific deciduous rainforest. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Like Carol said, you can't create an ecosystem in a glass box. True.
Mm, mhm.
But what we are doing, we're doing a biotope to a best ability. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go back to my questions I had and make sure I didn't miss any.
Yep. Oh, looks like AGZ joined us. Hey, Rick.
Hey, AGZ, welcome. Yeah, Jeff Kenson, ecosystem or a biotope? Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I was amazed how much new information to me. I mean, it's not new information, but to me it is. How many different things I didn't know about or even heard about
Mhm.
until I did my research about the biotope versus biotype. So it's a hey, just because you this is someone on a live stream on video, do your own research. It's amazing what you can find, what you can learn.
Well, and I think it was also interesting, a lot of the points that we've heard tonight, right, from others that also have done, research into it and have brought forward some very interesting sort of wrinkles in what on the surface may seem like a pretty simple discussion, which we know is not. I think has been really interesting.
Right. Okay. The one comment someone said in one of my research I've done, it says they said you don't have to have a big aquarium to make a biotope.
You don't have to have a big aquarium?
Right. But they did say it make it easier though to make a biotope.
And do we know why that is?
Basically, I mean, you have more of a ground. Basically, it's easier to put the organisms in a bigger tank than it is to downsize.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
You have more work with. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
You can do it in a smaller tank, but to make it easier, it would. Yeah. And since we're talking about biotopes, biotypes, do any of us on panel have any biotopes that we would call biotopes?
I've already said everything I have is a bio nope. Nope.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, right now I don't have any. Now, just because you don't have any, y'all, you can still have a species only, which it's a different system than the biotope, but in my opinion, it'd be close to it. It's kind of in the gray area.
Well, you didn't necessarily in that case add a fish that wasn't there because it's species only.
Right.
But I think that's another one where you're pretty far away, right? You haven't really, right, again, unless you've gone sort of those extra steps, you haven't really recreated or even inspired the environment that you would expect out in the wild for those. You may be creating a biotype of the aquarium at the fish store where you got the fish from.
Hey, that's actually a good point.
But not where their ancestors had originally come from.
True. But that's good, DJ. I didn't know about that. Doing a biotope from your local fish store. Yeah, that could be interesting. Now, I like Carl's comment. That's kind of what I was asking about one species and predators, like the Shelleys. Do you need a predator or do you need a shadow passing overhead to simulate the predator? Which one is getting a little long? I'm about look at this. Put that way for those that didn't catch it.
That's kind of why I was.
That's
I think these are such technical kind of.
Right. I get where it's coming from, though.
Yeah. Well, and I think the overall commentary is that truly getting to what I think people say they are getting to is not that easy to achieve. All right, we've got people that throw around kind of those words that are out there, the biotope, biotype words, but actually achieving it as you would from a definition perspective of what it really means, I think is a harder hill to climb than probably a lot of people may think.
Mm-hmm. Or do you need to add a boat? Do you need to add a shark? You get what I'm saying?
No, the little diver man.
Right.
Right? The little diver man with the bubbles coming up.
Right.
That's your fish store. That's your fish store biotype. Or did we lose Mariah?
Yeah. Uh,
Uh-oh.
it's probably a little bit of technical difficulties, y'all. Bear with
Yeah.
us. Welcome back. We missed you.
Sorry about that, guys.
It's okay.
You're good. You're good. You're good. Okay. Now, what if in nature there's a pop can or a shoe? Do you include that into your biotope? You know? No, it's something I'm thinking about. You know?
Yeah. That to me is, I mean, I can see why you got to that question, but I don't know that one single soda can, right? If you found it in that area, I don't know what that adds to the overall environment. I mean, certainly we don't want it there. I'm not saying that, but you know, I think that's one where it was somebody's,
Or fishing lures.
or fishing lures that people lose, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
these are some of the ones that I've collected over time. You know?
Mm-hmm. Steven says, if you're taking a slice of nature, technically that soda bottle has bacteria on its surfaces and microfauna. Yep.
Yeah.
I would assume it's been there long enough, of course. But I would also hope those same things wouldn't just be on the soda can or bottle or whatever. They'd be on other surfaces in that area. So it's kind of one of those of like,
but also remember, y'all, if you're taking trash and putting it into your aquarium, you're putting all these chemicals into a small box versus a big ecosystem. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah.
So it's going to affect what's in your tank.
Mm-hmm. If invasive species count, so does trash, Steven says.
I saw that. Yep. But if you're doing it, be careful, y'all. If you're adding trash to your aquarium, be careful.
Oh, did we welcome Mike Loves Life and Jesse Salient?
Oh, welcome, Jesse.
Hey,
Welcome,
Jesse.
Life.
Hey, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we've uncovered the fact that this is not a simple discussion. I think it's got many nuances. I think it's people confuse it a lot, right? And I think it kind of ends up where we found ourselves, where I don't know that there's clear cut answers on a lot of it. I think there's clear cut answers on some of it for sure, right? But I think that's that is, we've kind of found ourselves as to why our research probably was a little bit all over the place.
Right. So
Steven says, very true vibes. It's the lack of dilution that makes replicating nature in aquariums impossible. I mean, yeah, if you think about like a river that gets, I mean, I guess you'd call that, 100% water change as the water flows.
Yeah.
Right?
If there's enough trash, and the fish are going to die. You know.
Mm. Okay. If you have a sump 100 times bigger than the display, you might be approaching a biotope.
Hey, Carl, come on. You got this. Do it. I want to see it. Set up. Hey, Big Easy Support Group. Welcome. Okay. Paul Taylor said, all my tanks have plants, rocks, and driftwood. Are they biotopes? Nope. Are they biotypes? Maybe. Are they a collection of stuff that I think looks together? Yep.
Definitely the last one.
Yep.
Might be the second one.
And I do echo what Jeff Kane said. I do appreciate the effort of people who put the time into escape or biotype, but they just don't work for my fish keeping needs. Yeah.
Skull
No.
says, so my clown gravel under gravel tank is a no? Oh, no. It's not that it's a no.
No, it's a no. It's an absolutely no.
Believe me, we are not trying to say that these are the only types of tanks. Like I said, I don't have a single one that even resembles this. Right? Any kind of semblance of true nature. So I'm certainly not an advocate that that's what you have to be. So listen, Curtis, if you like that clown gravel and that ancient under gravel filter and it works for you, do it. Do it.
That's right, Coro. It's not just a no. It's a bio no. Bio no.
It's a bio no. Bio no.
It's not a no. It's just not a bio. My bad.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's right.
Well, for me, it's still a no. No clown gravel. Ew.
Hey, but what if someone dumped the aquarium into the river years ago, and here I come along and I find it?
You found the entire aquarium in the river?
Oh, the clown gravel. What if
that must have been one hell of a big aquarium.
You,
if you
found all the clown gravel in the river.
In the river? That's
because by that point, then all the paint would have done chipped off and algae would have grown on it at that point. So you would have never known it was clown gravel.
But Mariah, I suppose if the local aquarium, the one that kids and their families and everybody go to see, if they dumped something from a giant display, maybe that would be enough clown gravel to see it. But other than that, I don't think you're going to find a 20-gallon tank worth of clown gravel in any in any of your
PSA, if your local aquarium facility is using clown gravel or anything of the sort, please do not buy a ticket there.
Fair enough.
If your local aquarium is not trying their best to emulate a biotope, do not support them.
Wise decision. I just was simply saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. Med, I'm looking in the chat about meds, about treating the fish in your aquarium. If you give them meds, then it's not natural, y'all.
Right.
It's defeating the whole biotope thing. But hey, I ain't saying don't do it. Do it. Hey, if it works for you, do it. Hey, quick disclaimer, y'all. This is just our opinions, so take it as it is. Hey, it may work for us, but we ain't saying it's gonna work for you. How about that?
First Class Fish said, could you ever obtain or even keep alive all the microorganisms, parasites, bacteria, etc., even get the proper substrate, wood? I mean, I suppose where there's a will, there's a way. But if you think about it, each of those things consumes something. So you would have to know, right, which goes back to the research component that Coro mentioned. You would have to know what are the things that those different organisms are eating. Where does sort of that whole food, I guess they call it a food chain, right? Where does it start? And where do those things come from? So again, I think, could you potentially do it? Maybe. What would you have to do to get there? I think it would be kind of bananas to even think about. That's why I think a lot of these things, if you truly are trying to replicate exactly what's out there, it is going to be a monumental task. And again, maybe you can't do it, right? Is it possible? Sure, but I don't know how likely it is.
Big Steve had a very good comment. He said, maybe I missed someone already saying this, but what if you make a biotope and half of the plants in that body of water are invasive, found natural for 200 years, but not originally from there? That's a good point. And I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier as far as not only the area of collection that we're speaking about, but the time period as well. So, for instance, you said for 200 years, if you want to say that this is a biotope, for this area of this time period, I would say that that would speak true to that. However, if you want to just speak generally to that specific geographical location, you would have to go back to what was there originally, so to speak, which of course would be very difficult to find out without extensive research, as Cora was saying earlier.
Welcome, Gina. Good to see you. How you doing?
Hey, Gina. I like Steven's comment here too. We assume that the fish are happiest in their natural environment, but evolutionarily they may be barely adapting. Yeah, and if you think about the number of environments that are out there that have continued to degrade for any number of reasons, be it farming, deforestation, pollution. Yeah, the fish may be surviving and have figured out how to kind of hang on, but it may not any longer be the the best environment for them.
Right.
And unfortunately, what we're starting to see a lot more is that now, in a lot of cases, the natural environments are no longer suitable environments for them because of human intervention, pollution, encroaching on the areas with damming and deforestation. I mean, there's a number of different things that inevitably we are the cause of. So it's kind of sad to see that and to say it out loud, but in a way we're kind of destroying these true biotopes out in the wild, by moving things away from where they're supposed to be, whether it be introducing invasive species or plants or just not properly taking care of the environment the way we should.
I do like Let's got Fish comment.
I was going to go there too. Go ahead.
I think it's not possible until you set limits on what is going to be considered a qualified biotype.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So how do you decide? Or is it just a personal opinions?
Well, I think that's the thing, right? So I had tried to sort of articulate earlier that I don't know that there's necessarily, in the research that I did, which, is obviously not exhausted. I'm sure there's way more that's out there, but there wasn't necessarily one standard.
Right.
And so without that, it's kind of become sort of, it's in the eye of the beholder, which goes back to, again, why I think there's so many different opinions and so many different sources that say different things, right?
Right. So, hey, if someone would ask you about a biotope, what guidelines would you tell them? Like I was saying in Coa's comment here.
I saw that question. I think it's a great question. And I guess the way I would have to qualify it, right, is I would have to say, I don't feel like I'm someone who is educated on the topic enough to be the kind of the mouthpiece of what that looks like. I can certainly have an opinion and we can share sort of what each of our opinions are on that topic, but I would never say that I'm an authority enough that you should listen to me, right?
Right. Same. I'm gonna go back and make sure I didn't miss any. I've been clicking on some of the comments in the chat because I'm making sure that we covered the questions.
Those are the starred ones.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm quick. Mr. Cali brought a good point. At the end of the day, all that really matters is that you enjoy your aquarium. Who cares what it is? Exactly, George. I agree 100%. Now that I can give my true, strong opinion about. Yeah. Thanks, George.
And just going back really quickly to Coral's comment there, as far as it being a spectrum, but talking about the guidelines. I mean, while on one hand I say we could argue that none of us have a true biotope, on the other hand, I could also say that we could say that depending on the spectrum that you are looking, like what level of the spectrum you're looking at, all of us have some type of biotope. For example, I mean, of course, we're all trying to match water parameters, temperature, lighting, usually, and the hardscape for in most cases. With that being said, I would say with that you would have the basic level biotope.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start getting into like the pressure, the weather simulation, the rain, the dry season, once you start getting into a little bit more um, tedious parts of the spectrum, then I could say it would get closer and closer to that true biotope.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it really depends on how you look at that spectrum and what you would include on the different tiers of that spectrum. Which goes
Yeah.
back to what
Yeah.
TJ said earlier in saying it's essentially a personal preference.
Yeah.
Or a personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think on some level, right? And I think but I do think it's important that people recognize the difference, because I think we've already said biotype and biotope are their own sort of spectrums, right? They're sort of different levels. And if people walk out of here just with the idea that in order to reach true biotope levels,
Mm-hmm.
the bar is pretty high, even if you sort of sub-segment that, right? I think in my mind that's one that I think we can probably all agree on. Right? I think it's. Are you reading Jesse's comment?
Yes, you guys. Oh my god. Jesse says it goes back to this Biotopia pudding versus cottage cheese. Obviously, I'm hitting the pudding, and Vibes is going for the cottage cheese. To each their own, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's not bad, Jesse. I like that. I like
I
it.
was gonna say he knows you pretty well.
Yeah. There again, that's my opinion about the cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese
is
is
an
an ecosystem.
It does. Does it have bacteria in it? Vibes.
It does actually.
Yeah.
Does it?
Lactobacillus bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
Does. Okay.
But is it in a complete ecosystem though?
Well, I don't know. If you open the lid, is there condensation on the bottom of it?
Oh.
It's got
So
evaporation and condensation. It's got a water cycle. It's got bacteria growing in it. It's a living organism. It's its own ecosystem right in the container.
Oh boy.
so in other words, what you're saying, I need to somehow get that environment into a glass box. That way people
No,
can see it.
no, don't. Let's not. Let's just say we did and not do that.
Right.
Oh. Okay.
That's yep. I'm gonna go with Mariah on that one.
Okay.
I did want to address one of the starred comments. Coro asked about Shelley's and how they live,
Yeah. Go ahead.
right? And I think in general how they try to live. And it's probably not true of all of them, right? I don't know. There's so many different ones, right? But like the Maltese, for instance, they do tend to live in like a little colony. So you'll see. I've seen videos of. I think it was Pam Chin who spoke at our local fish club one time a couple of years ago, and she dives or has dove in Tanganyika, and she'll show videos that she would take with a camera. And they would have like a little colony.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I mean, there's lots of babies, so I think you also see there's other fish that go in there, but that kind of is that predatory situation that we were talking about, where there's lots of fish that I think are, specifically designed to go into rocks or potentially into shells and to get after the little fry that they want to eat. But I think if left to their own devices, yeah, I think a lot of the shellies tend to like to live in sort of some of those kind of small colony areas and strengthen numbers, and kind of that's where they develop those kind of complex social structures that we see even in our aquariums, which is a very, very small microcosm of sort of what they would usually live in, I think, in more of the natural environment.
And I do see that Ed is going live after this at 8:30 my time. In like about 10 minutes, y'all.
Yep, you got it.
So for those that are going over there, put hashtag Biotope in the chat. How about that?
Bionope.
Oh, that's even better, TJ. I like it. Hold on, y'all.
I'm not going to read it out loud, guys, but please look at First Class Fish's comment at 9:19.
What time?
Sure.
I mean, if that is occurring on a regular basis, then I would say, yeah, probably so.
Yeah, and coral, what I've seen, again, it's probably not true of all species, but what I've seen of some of the shelly species is that it's a single species type of colony. Again, it doesn't mean that others don't end up sort of kind of encroaching in on the space or trying to get in there and get after some of the young, or if they're a bigger shelly, which there are some, would they maybe go after even some of the adults? Yeah, I think that's possible, but I don't believe that they do that on purpose.
Right.
Jesse says, getting a new fish, libido chromis Doritos tacos.
That must be a newly discovered species.
Gotta be. That's gotta be a new color wave, new drop.
And hey, if anyone did ask a question earlier in the chat and for some reason we didn't see it, go ahead and ask again. We got a little bit of time before we call it a night, y'all.
No, Coral, definitely haven't been doing research with that purpose in mind of doing any kind of biotope, not type. No. It's simply just I happened to see a talk by Pam Chin, who is someone that goes or has, I don't know if she does anymore, but has gone to Tanganyika a number of times and talked a little bit about what it was like to be there and what she saw, and showed videos and pictures and things like that. So no, I didn't do it with the intent of trying to make anything of it in my own aquarium. I just wanted to share what I had seen in what she shared with the Fish Club.
Okay. I don't see any more questions, y'all. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. That way, those that are heading out to Ed's has a bit of time to, get a snack, something to drink, take a little break, But before we head out, Mariah, what do you guys say to the fish fam?
Love you guys. Thanks for coming as always every week. Appreciate y'all for coming out and watching us talk about our crazy stuff we talk about, and bearing with us through all our goofiness. And of course, as always, you guys, treat others how you want to be treated. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And may God treat you how you treat animals and elders.
Yeah. How about you, TJ?
Yeah, I particularly enjoyed tonight's discussion. I want to thank Riva for coming up with the question last week, because it would not have happened had he not asked about that. And then we went back and said, oh, we need to address this. So right. I appreciate, I appreciate very much that he took the time to ask the question and kind of got us down this path. And I also thank everybody for taking the time to sort of kick in their own thoughts. And I thank you guys for doing your own research so that we could kind of banter back and forth here a little bit. And I thoroughly enjoyed another Thursday night with you guys, and I look forward to next week.
Yeah. Thanks. First on the bat, I got to say a big thank you to Mariah and TJ for even considering coming up here as a co-host. I'm blessed to have found the best co-host in the world. So,
and we wouldn't do it without our fearless leader.
That's right.
Thank you. Thanks to all everyone that is here yet. Those watching replay, if you made it this far, put hashtag Bionote in the comments. That way, it's kind of curious, But until later, love your family, your friends, treat everyone fairly, and stay positive. Positive vibes only, y'all. Until next time, peace out. Bye. Wonderful members, y'all. Wonderful people.